What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and more SPQR coverage here. So again, we are looking at the revised book here, and we have an early copy. So we're going to cover in our series here all the differences with the new edition, see what has changed, what stayed similar or the same, and kind of give you guys some thoughts on that. So this part of our coverage here is basically just breaking down the different factions and seeing again what has changed and offering up some commentary on that. So we start off with Athens. We're moving right along again into the next one here, which is Britain. So again, on the left here is our revised copy, and then on the right is the original rulebook. So we'll start off with the hero here, of course. And rather than kind of constantly panning back and forth, so I'm going to mainly focus on the new edition, but give you guys sort of some of the changes here as I'm talking, as far as like what the old points values or options and stuff were, and then kind of stay focused on the new one here. So the hero for the Brits has gotten 5 denarii cheaper, so down to 40. Stat wise here, let's see, ranged and melee are still the same. Melee dice, agility's at 2, bravery starts at 2, that's all good. No extra armor to start with, and 2 wounds, so that's all the same. So basically just a 5-point discount. Options, it seems like just at initial glance here that they may have lost a couple, or some things have changed. So let's see here. Small shield has actually doubled in price to 4 denarii. Large shield has increased from 5 to 8. Leather armor has dropped by 2 points. Chainmail has gone up a point. Helmet has gone up a point. Short spear has doubled from 3 to 6. Dagger has dropped a point from 2 to 1 and is, pun intended, kind of pointless to take. You should probably, spend the extra points in your hero to make him as deadly as possible. But anyway, moving on. The axe has gotten a point cheaper. That's cool. Like to see that. The great axe has increased 3 points. Sword has stayed. Nope, has dropped a point. The two-handed sword is gone. So old edition, they used to be able to get a two-handed sword for 15 points as well. So that is just gone. The sling has gone up 3 points to 8. The horse has dropped by 10. It used to be 30. So it seems like in general, just as a casual glance through all the factions so far, that mounted heroes are going to be more prevalent just because they're so much cheaper, especially at earlier points levels and things for like campaigns and stuff like that. So definitely something to be on the lookout for, and is more viable, which opens up some interesting ideas for many of the factions. And then finally here, the Javelins are still prevalent or present, up to 3 of them, but they have doubled in price, so four a pop here if you want to go that route. So that is the hero. We'll be moving on to the minions next. So moving right along, actually, we did have one more hero, guys, and that is the Druid. Can't forget about the Druid for the Brits, and it's really like our one sort of element of magic or the supernatural in the game, but it's still pretty cool. So they have dropped drastically from 75 points to 45, so very much well worth taking now. Stat wise, still, definitely want to keep these guys away from combat. Only melee +1, 1 melee die. No agility. Bravery is still at +3, so very good stuff there. No armor and 2 wounds, and their equipment is still very limited, so the dagger option has stayed the same for 2 denarii, and a sword. The sword option has actually gotten cheaper by a point, so down to 4. The Blight rule, we'll take a quick glance through that here. So the presence of a druid did not just bolster the morale of the Britons. Their enemies were highly fearful of their powers too, and were vulnerable to curses laid on them. So kind of skipping ahead here. So the hero, actually, hold on. So before a battle begins, the British player may select. Oh, well, there's a typo in the new book. That's not great. That was the same typo in the old book, but anyway, British player may select any one hero in the enemy warband. That hero will suffer a -1 penalty to any characteristic of the British player's choosing for the rest of the battle. A hero may only be blighted by 1 druid, so that has been added there just to clarify some things, just because people were taking multiple druids apparently and nerfing enemy heroes, which is a fun idea, but this just limits it to 1, but nonetheless still useful. Druidic Presence, I think, has also stayed the same. Just I think the verbiage has been cleared up a little bit. But yeah, let's see. A druid may not be challenged by an enemy hero, but he can issue his own challenge, perhaps foolishly, probably pretty desperate if he has to. In addition, any British unit the druid leads may reroll any of its own melee dice in close combat. That's really the main benefit there. One of the main benefits of the druid is just having that reroll ability. So very good stuff there. But that has stayed the same. So then we move on to the Chariot. And that has stayed the same at 40 denarii. Um, and let's see, +1 melee, 3 dice. Actually, no, that is down now. It used to be 3 melee dice per chariot. They're just down to 2. Bravery still +2. Agility has actually improved, though. It was -1. It's just 0 now. So that's uh, certainly good. But that being said, losing that melee dice is rough. Armor still +2 and 4 wounds. It still gives you a horse, large shield, and short spear, so that's all good. And then the wording and stuff has been cleared up here, and so it's basically the property of a hero. So that has actually kind of expanded here, just to clarify some things. Basically, 1 hero per chariot, and they can start the battle on it or not start the battle, and dismount at a given period as well. And basically, when the hero mounts the chariot, their stats get replaced with the chariot stats up above. That being said, it still would have been nice to have that 3rd melee dice there, but it's still a pretty decent option just to get your hero around and get them to where they need to be. And then the interesting thing, though, is it also does buy you some sort of protection for the hero here, right? So they never receive any hits during melee or shoot actions. It's all applied to the chariot. However, once the chariot is destroyed, you roll a dice and the hero loses that many wounds. If you still have some wounds remaining, you basically get placed within 3 where the chariot essentially fell apart. That being said, it's probably wise to dismount if your chariot is down on its last wound there. So I would probably make sure my hero steps off there if at all possible. So just be careful of overexposing your chariot there. But still a pretty good option, and one of the things that really makes the Britain faction stand out here. So and you realize that it is a minion type unit, but again, because it's really tied to a hero, if you're going to be fielding these at all, that really kind of gives us a quick summary here of the hero options for the Brits. So by and large, good discounts on the regular hero, and the Druid certainly well worth taking at least one. And Chariot is still overall a great option for the hero. That being said, you're losing a bit with the melee dice side there, and yeah, sure, the agility got moved to neutral, but honestly, losing that melee dice is pretty rough there. So 2 dice is makes it a little bit questionable to use the Chariot. Let's say if you had like a really high level hero with let's say 4 or 5 melee dice potentially, if they've leveled up enough. You're gaining the mobility and sort of the protection of the chariot, but at the same time you're essentially neutering your offensive output if you do want to engage with it. So so the chariot isn't certainly going to be like this sort of amazing battle platform in the sense that you can load up a beefy hero on that and then just kind of like essentially ride around on the chariot slaughtering at will with that. But it does, again, sort of extend some of the life of your heroes there and kind of getting them to where they need to. So a good complement to certain aspects of the army. But, I'd say for losing the melee dice, but gaining the agility there, honestly, I feel like maybe even a 5-point discount or something would have been warranted there. So we'll have to see and get some games in to see how that works, how it feels now by staying at the same points. But I think, honestly, the biggest win here is the Druids basically getting a 30-point discount. And then overall, some of the discounts on the regular hero side, although, again, a lot of the equipment has gone up. And by and large, we won't really miss the 2-handed sword. We still have the axe and other options there. So plenty of things to kit your heroes out with. So we'll be moving on to the real minions next. Alrighty, we continue on with the minion selection here. So we start off on the cavalry and then sort of pseudo infantry cavalry hybrid unit there with the hunting dogs. Everybody's favorite for the Brits. So horsemen have gone up a single denarii, so that's not a big change overall there. Range is still +1, melee is +2. Again, pretty much every minion unit is at 1 melee dice now in the game, so only the truly elites really get 2. So a step down there, but in line with everything else, so that's fine. Agility still 0, bravery 1, armor 1, and 2 wounds. And we still have horse. Oh, the equipment has changed a little bit, guys. So horse, sword, and small shield now. The short spear that they used to come with has been replaced with a sword. So arguably, in some instances, better, but the spear is certainly nice when you're charging. But let's take a look at the equipment here. So javelins are still up to 2 at 2 points apiece there. So that's the same. Leather armor has dropped by 2 points. So that's cool. Again, some all these armor options, of course, are always nice when that stuff gets cheaper. Helmet is also actually helmet has gone up by 1. So not sure. I'll have to double check. We'll have a video on the difference in equipment and stuff again. But if I remember correctly, leather and helmets kind of did the same thing last edition. So putting them both at 3 is kind of pointless, I guess. But again, we'll come back to that in a separate video. The short spear now is an option to purchase at 2 denarii, whereas swords before, so again, they used to come with short spears, and then you could have the option of buying a sword for 3 denarii each. So again, that is essentially flip-flopped, except the short spear option is 1 point cheaper. So ultimately, I guess you could get to the same equipment and be 1 point cheaper, but again, the base model is the base horseman has gone up a point. The horn, if you do want one, is still 10 points here. However, standards have seemingly come down in price all across the board, and they were a bit pricey before, so down to 5 from 25. So pretty much no reason to not make that effort to kit out a unit with your standard. And then they do still have hit and run. We'll see how special rules and stuff have changed, of course, in a separate video. Moving on to the hunting dogs. So I guess actually we'll back up real quick. So overall, still pretty solid cavalry, not certainly upper tier as far as just the true elite cavalry of the game, but still serviceable. Still, they will still do some work for you in the right at the right moment. So still a good addition to the army. Hunting dogs again. Really interesting hybrid unit, and love that we can feel this here for the British. So that being said, they have gone from 9 denarii to 15, guys. So you know, a 6 point increase there just for the basic cost of these, and probably needed. Just from experience with the first go through of the game edition and all that, they did seem a little bit undercosted and overall pretty good for what you were getting there. So do they need to be 6 points more expensive? Well, we can't say for sure yet. We definitely need to get some games in, but certainly something to consider, or will be something you need to consider now with the point increase. And depending on the size of units you really want to get out on the field here. So I think there was a little bit of cleanup here on the stats too. So let's see here. The Tribesmen, melee, range +1, melee +1, again, down to 1 melee dice. Agility 1, bravery 1, armor 0, and 1 wound. So basically everything the same there, just again, melee dice has dropped. The dog has lost its ranged ability, which it shouldn't have had in the first place, so that's nice to see that cleaned up. Melee has gone down by 1. It used to be a +3 melee bonus, which is why these were so good when they were just 9 points apiece. The dogs were just constantly causing the damage, and maybe just a little too good. But melee +2 is still very solid, and the dogs still retain their 2 melee dice apiece, which is nice to see, and I'm a fan of that too. So they did have +2 agility, that has stayed. Bravery, no armor, makes sense, and still the 1 wound, so that's good there. So equipment, the Tribesman still has his short spear. And then for the doggies, the teeth and the bite and the bark and all that. And then, yeah. Oh, interesting. That has changed too. So So previously, the bite of the dogs was treated as a short spear. Here is treated as a sword. So that's an interesting change. So overall, that's probably better than the short spear variant. Of course, we'll have to see how swords have changed and stuff potentially in this edition as well. But for now, again, we're just treating this as if we haven't. So just a first glance through the various changes here. We'll again do more of a deep dive once we've covered all the equipment and all that stuff as well, and kind of start putting big picture details together. So options here in the Tribesmen, the helmet has gone up a point if you want to go that route, and then the sword has come down a point. So just some point swaps there. That's fine. That being said, though, now with these being 15 points base per sort of increment that you're purchasing here, those options are certainly a little bit pricier. So again, previously the hunting dog packs were just way too good, dirt cheap, really strong, and then cheap enough to where you could just kit out the tribesmen too, just to have a little bit more survivability. Let's see the dog handler rule here. So a hunting dog unit must have at least one tribesman for every 4 hounds at the start of the battle, and may not have more tribesmen handlers than hounds. So yeah, that's still all in line there. That hasn't changed. And then, so long as at least one hound remains in the unit, the hunting dogs increase their move to 10 during 1 melee action per phase. So pretty good there, and I think that has stayed as well. So that hasn't really changed. Nope. So good overall there. So again, some interesting changes there, guys. Definitely let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. That's the biggest change so far, really, on the minion side. Of course, we got more to cover, so we'll continue on. All right, guys, we come then to the infantry, or the main infantry here, and here we do have some significant changes, so we'll be spending some time talking about that. So the warriors have basically more than doubled in price. So they have gone from 8 denarii up to 17, and then the tribesmen have gone from 8 to 10. So previously, both warriors and tribesmen were 8 denarii each to start with, and so these are some drastic changes here. Again, sort of one of your core units, really, that you definitely want to have a lot of because they're really damn good, has more than doubled in price, right, from 8 to 17. So that really does will require some recalculation there on what you're fielding in your war bands here for the British. That being said, they still have Skyclad, Strength in Numbers, and Wild Charge. We'll get into that in just a bit, and we'll explore the options and stats and all that. But I think really this was probably done just to really differentiate the two, because before, both of them kind of starting out at 8, they in some ways they felt the same. Certainly the warriors were still better in combat, whereas the tribesmen were essentially more of a ranged unit for you that could also do some a little bit of work in combat and skirmish and all that, but were probably too good in combat when they didn't need to be, and that's nice to see. Sort of, again, the melee dice come down, but for the warriors, increasing that much in price, they've also been hit with that drop to 1 melee dice a piece here. So it'll definitely take some adjusting, I think, and getting used to see just what the best options are for playing these guys right now. So stats, again, range +1, melee +2, only 1 die. Agility and bravery still at 1. Armor and weapon, or armor and wounds, still the same there too. Previously, they had large shields and short spears. Again, that has been swapped with large shield and sword now as the default option. So that, again, hopefully that won't throw too many people off who've maybe just modeled most of their guys with short spears. But let's take a look at what else we got here. So javelins have stayed the same. So up to 3 javelins at 2 apiece. Leather armor has drastically come down. I hope that's not a typo, but it was 5 points each or per model for leather armor. That is 1 point apiece now. That's certainly a steal, and kind of needed, I guess, maybe because of their base price here. So you do still have the chain option here. Before, that was 12 points, which would have really made those 20-point warriors. Now the chain shirts are 6 points, so half as much, but you're still looking at a 23-point model there that I always kind of use the Roman legionary as sort of the measuring stick there for infantry. So how will they stand up to those? Well, we'll see when we get through the coverage here, but 23 points is definitely in the sort of elite infantry territory, so we'll have to see if these guys really still can hang in that sense. Helmets are also just 1 point apiece now. Then on the weapon side, so here, interestingly, before we could add swords for 3 denarii apiece. Now we don't get the option of having swords and spears. We actually can replace the swords with short spears for another point. You may want to do that for some of your units. I don't know. The sword's still pretty good though, I think. So again, we'll cover that in equipment video, weapons and equipment and all that. And then the horn has stayed the same, but again, the banner standard has dropped from 5 to 2, or 25 to 5. So again, really good there. But interesting that we have to basically either go sword and shield or spear and shield. We can't sort of upgrade our warrior units to have multiple weapon options there. So and perhaps that makes more sense too, just with maybe these guys not being sort of the military machine that the Romans were, where everybody could maybe be very well kitted out in that sense. But definitely some differences there. Skyclad, let's see how that works now, if anything's changed. If a unit of warriors does not take any armor other than a large shield, and their models are wearing no clothing at all, they gain +1 bonus to melee. So basically, they just removed sort of the fluff sentence out of there, so that's pretty cool, or just tweaked it a little bit. But yeah, +1 bonus to melee, so that's cool. So we can definitely still get these guys at +3, so that's definitely still on the elite side of that. Just again, throwing fewer dice overall, but so is everybody else, so that's good. Strength in numbers. I feel like this one has changed from before, just from going back with the Athenian unit. But yeah, so now basically, as long as you are a large unit with 10 or more models, you get +1 bonus to bravery. There's no more extra bonus when you're 20 or more models. So that +1 buff to bravery is as good as it's going to get from there. And then wild charge. So the initial massed charge of warriors is wild, chaotic, and crazy enough to break all but the most disciplined enemies. So again, a large unit of warriors that charges gains 10 extra melee dice added to its melee dice pool. So it's just a fixed amount. So as long as you're 10 plus, you're going to get 10 dice. So whether you have 11 guys or 19 guys, the bonus is still going to be the same. Now, guys that are still going to be able to fight, of course, will contribute their die. But it's nice to just kind of simplify the math on that. And it's just, as long as you're a large unit, it's just 10 dice. Very easy to remember. So I like that change there, as opposed to just, bonus dice per guy and all that stuff. And then just some of the confusing wording that the previous version had there. That being said here, what else we got? If the warriors charge 2 or more separate enemy units, then the 10 extra dice are divided and assigned to the separate melee dice pools as the owning player decides. So that's a good ability, or a good description there too, just so, there's those people out there who would probably say, oh, they should get 10 melee dice per unit they charge or something like that. People just being silly and misinterpreting rules or the intent of the rules and trying to break things. But this is good overall. I like the change to wild charge. So I think the option here is clear. So certainly does seem like in some way we can be steered towards Skyclad, just to sort of go all out on offense there. And when you can combine that with being in a large unit, the bravery will help you hold out for a little bit. And you're certainly going to have to really butcher a unit on the charge, and those 10 extra dice will hopefully help there. And with the way combat has changed in the new edition, that I think will give these guys definitely a good boost, regardless of whether it's Skyclad or not. But Skyclad, again, gives you sort of the most offensive punch there with that extra bonus to the melee. So the more hits you're going to pile into the enemy, the better, right? That being said, if you do want to go a little bit more elite with these guys as far as adding some armor, you can certainly still get that wild charge off, but you're just going to be rolling at melee +2. But on the other hand, you're actually going to be somewhat survivable. So which is not a bad thing because overall, again, the Brits are going to be a very heavily armored force. And certainly, if you don't start punching holes in the enemy on your charges and it turns into a battle of attrition, well, that distinct lack of armor across the board is very quickly going to whittle your numbers down. And once you're down to less than 10 models and you're not a large unit anymore, these types of armies do tend to fade pretty fast. So some interesting changes there, guys. Definitely want to hear your commentary there. And then finally, we got to move on to Tribesmen. So again, 2 points more expensive. Ranged melee has stayed the same, but again, dropped to 1 melee dice. And all the other stats are the same there. They come base equipped with a sling, which is really your main ranged option in this game. And slings, I think, should still be the longest ranged regular option there at 30 inches, if I recall correctly. We'll see if that has changed. That being said, we can switch our, not switch out, but add on javelins. That has stayed the same. Helmet option has gone up a point. Again, just with these guys really being more your ranged force now, with maybe just a bit of ability to do some basic combat work against light, and I do mean light units. You're already paying 10 points apiece. Does adding armor really do that much for you here? For just minimal, and I do mean minimal armor, it's questionable. I'm leaning towards no overall, but again, we have to really get a sense of everything that has changed in the game, and really, again, playtesting is just the best way to figure this out. That being said, leather armor has also gotten cheaper, so 3 points there, so may be worth considering. Small shields have also gotten a point cheaper, so if you do want to sort of kit up into, again, the melee option for these guys, you're going to be in the mid-teens to be properly kitted out, at which point you're kind of an average melee unit for points cost, but certainly these guys aren't anywhere near sort of a typical melee unit for stats there as far as their bonus. So that +1 is not going to get you that many hits. But we do also have the sword option, and that has also decreased by 1. So again, it's very tempting to bump up into some close combat ability with these guys. So overall, I would say certainly you got to have some actual dedicated ranged in your warband in some way, shape, or form. So probably keeping a few units just as pure slingers and just trying to keep them out of trouble is going to be decent there. They do have hit and run, if need be, that is an escape option there. But if you do want to go the close combat option as well, being able to get in, do some damage, then potentially get back out is also useful there. And they do still have the strength in numbers ability there, so if you do get a large unit of these guys, certainly a large unit of slingers is pretty scary, but also going to be more expensive now. But again, if you want to have these guys as like a backup close combat unit that are just going to give you some of the numbers, in addition to the warriors there, which again are just going to be so much more expensive now, it's these guys might be able to get that work in. It's just that +1 melee is really going to be the letdown there. Not so much the drop to 1 melee dice, but just the fact that these guys aren't going to be hitting as much, regardless, is going to be the real test there. So that is basically everything on the British side. So again, lots of interesting changes. We're going to get into the heroes real quick, and then that will wrap up the British overall here.